forget the dry dates in textbooks or the silent ruins you step on today as just another tourist in the crowd. Close your eyes and breathe in. It's a humid afternoon in the 14th century. Barcelona smells of sea salt from the port, mixed with the incense drifting out of a cathedral still under construction. Listen to the non-stop hammering of stonemasons in the Born, the shouts of spice merchants, and the rustle of silk robes against the stone walls of a city alive with violence, energy, and beauty. Welcome to the moment when the dust of the centuries is shaken loose to reveal the city before it became a postcard. A journey where artificial intelligence doesn't just recreate walls, but awakens the ghosts of those who built, loved, and defended these streets. You're not going to read history, you're going to walk through it. This is what 1,100 years of Barcelona looks like, from the first brick to modern glory. In History Reborn, we travel through the eras and cities that shape the world and give them a visual identity. Let's begin this journey into the past. Barcelona was born as a small walled city built on the remains of the Roman Empire. But for more than 1,000 years, it never stopped changing. If you walked its streets in the 9th century, you would find a compact, quiet city enclosed within thick stone walls built centuries earlier by the Romans. Towers watched over every entrance, and the narrow streets still followed the ancient layout of Barcino. Inside those walls lived artisans, clergy, and soldiers under the authority of the Counts of Barcelona, on a frontier constantly threatened by conflict and attack. The houses were small, damp, and dark. Many had barely one window facing the street. The smell of wood smoke and manure lingered in the alleyways. At dawn, you could see women carrying buckets of water from communal wells while bakers lit stone ovens before sunrise. Life revolved around churches and small markets where wheat, wine, and oil were traded. The city was small, but its position on the Mediterranean made it strategic. Little by little, Barcelona began to grow beyond its old walls. During the 11th and 12th centuries, new neighborhoods appeared near the port and the Ribera district. The streets started to fill with blacksmiths, carpenters, and merchants working for an increasingly active maritime economy. The port was still rudimentary, but it already connected the city with Genoa, Marseille, and other Mediterranean ports. Ships arrived loaded with cloth and spices, while Barcelona exported wine and agricultural products. The sound of hammers striking metal echoed from workshops open to the street, mixing with the cries of vendors and the strong smell of fish freshly unloaded at the port. Children ran between wooden carts, dodging animals and foreign merchants speaking different languages. And then came the Great Rise. During the 13th and 14th centuries, Barcelona became one of the most important commercial cities in the Mediterranean. The Crown of Aragon expanded its influence into Sicily, Sardinia, and Naples, and Barcelona's merchants amassed enormous fortunes through maritime trade. The Ribera district became the true economic center of the city. Warehouses, workshops, and taverns frequented by sailors and foreign merchants stood there. The streets were narrow, dark, and always crowded. Very close to the sea, the royal shipyards built galleys for trade and war. Wealth transformed the architecture. Great merchant families built stone houses with interior courtyards and decorated Gothic windows. It was during this period that construction began on Santa Maria del Mar, financed mainly by merchants and dock workers. Its enormous columns symbolized the pride of a city that dominated key maritime routes in the Western Mediterranean. In the markets, you could find Italian fabrics, Sicilian wheat, and Eastern spices, whose aroma filled entire squares. Servants carried chests of goods, while money changers counted silver coins under crowded arcades, but not everyone shared in that wealth. Just a few streets away from those mansions, thousands of craftsmen barely survived in cramped rooms where entire families slept beside tools and animals. Guilds regulated practically every trade, and religion dominated daily life. Church bells marked the hours, and processions filled the muddy streets. Yet the city also lived in constant fear of epidemics and famine. In 1348, the Black Death struck Barcelona with devastating force and wiped out a large part of the population. Suddenly, the bustle disappeared. Workshops closed, houses were abandoned, carts carrying corpses covered in rough cloth crossed silent streets where only months earlier trade never stopped. During the 15th and 16th centuries, Barcelona lost some of its international prominence after the discovery of America and the rise of Atlantic trade. Even so, it remained an important artisanal and commercial center. Its streets were still trapped inside medieval walls that severely limited urban growth. Tall, narrow houses stacked on top of one another let in very little light. In many alleyways, the sun barely reached the ground, and the air grew heavy with smoke, waste, and humidity. The 17th century was marked by wars and political tensions, but the most decisive moment came in 1714, during the War of the Spanish Succession. After a long siege, Barcelona fell to the troops of Philip V. Part of the Ribera district was demolished to build the Ciutadella fortress, designed to keep the city under military control. Thousands of people lost their homes. Silence, ruins, total control. Where there had once been taverns, workshops, and medieval bells, soldiers now patrolled destroyed streets. Entire families watched as their own homes were torn down stone by stone, while the sound of military hammers replaced the daily life of the neighborhood. And then came another transformation, even more brutal. Where there had once been bells and medieval markets, giant factories and chimneys now filled the sky with smoke. The sound of industrial looms replaced artisanal labor. Many children began working before they were even 10 years old. Then the walls disappeared. In the mid-19th century, demolition of the old medieval walls began. For the first time in centuries, Barcelona no longer felt enclosed. Shortly afterward, engineer Ildefons Cerdà designed the Eixample, a massive urban project based on wide avenues and geometric blocks meant to completely modernize the city. The contrast was radical. Where there had once been dark, overcrowded alleyways, there were now broad avenues with trams and carriages moving among newly planted trees. At the same time, modernist architects like Antoni Gaudí transformed the urban landscape with revolutionary buildings. The construction of the Sagrada Familia changed Barcelona's skyline forever. The 20th century brought modernization, conflict, and massive growth. Barcelona suffered bombings during the Spanish Civil War and then lived for decades under Franco's dictatorship. Air raid sirens interrupted daily life while many families took shelter in stations and underground tunnels. Even so, the city kept expanding and receiving immigrants from all over Spain. New neighborhoods grew rapidly on the outskirts among concrete blocks, factories, and increasingly congested roads. And finally, Barcelona looked back to the sea. Closing, what's truly extraordinary is that the city survived everything: invasions, epidemics, wars, bombings, and revolutions. Each generation left a different mark on its streets, as if Barcelona had never stopped rebuilding itself. Beneath every stone in the Gothic quarter, behind every modernist facade, and under the constant noise of the modern city, the traces of those who walked here hundreds of years ago still remain. And as the Mediterranean keeps gently crashing against its coast, Barcelona continues doing what it has done for more than 1,000 years, changing without ever losing its identity. But this is where our journey into the past ends. Tell me, which year impressed you the most? Leave it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this dive through time, hit like, subscribe to History Reborn so you don't miss any journey, and click on this video if you want to keep discovering the best kept secrets of our past.